Hello, friends. This is Dave Hurwitz, executive editor at ClassicsToday.com, here with another Abbado box. You mentioned it. You wanted it. I've got it. His Decca recordings. Now, some of these I think are spread out in some of the other Abbado boxes, like in the LSO box. I don't know. I don't have the patience to even look. But this one has 7 discs, and as some of you have pointed out, some of his best work was his earliest. That's always the case with these people when things are young and fresh, and even when he revisited the repertoire, he didn't do it as well. So let's just see what's on here. It'll be very quick, I promise, and we will just get through it, and it's available still if you're curious, and it really is very good. I'm not denying that. It's an excellent box for the most part. First, Disc 1, Beethoven 7 and 8 and the Overture to the Creatures of Prometheus. Probably the least interesting disc in here. Because Abbado has never been a great Beethoven conductor. Never, ever. He did a whole cycle with the Vienna Phil. He did 2 with Berlin, one which was dreadful and sort of quietly withdrawn, the other which was soundtracks to videos, which was much better, which later replaced the one that was withdrawn. And even before then, he was doing Beethoven, and not terribly convincingly. He just didn't have the fire in his belly. It's that simple. It's just the reality of the situation. The 7th is much worse than the 8th. The 8th is pretty good, but that 7th, oh my God, it's a slog. So forget it. Next, Brahms, Rinaldo, and the Schicksalslied. Now, Rinaldo, Abbado was a wonderful Brahms conductor, first-rate Brahms conductor. There, he had the fire in his belly. And there are not many recordings of Rinaldo. Rinaldo is actually Brahms's largest work, along with the German Requiem. It's a cantata for male voices, basically, about, the story. Rinaldo, the crusader, knight, and all that stuff. Handel did an opera. Everybody did an opera. It's excruciatingly dull, in my humble opinion. Some people adore it. Some people swear by it. Of course, even the people who swear by it, I ask them, when was the last time you decided to listen to Rinaldo? And they usually say, well, but it's wonderful music. It's a great piece. Yeah, okay, so when was the last time you played it? Well, let me put it this way. When was the last time you came home from work after a long, hard day at the office and said, I just want to hear Rinaldo? Well, doesn't happen that often, let's face it. So, at best, even if you adore it, it's an occasional piece. I was shocked to find out that Brahms wrote the damn thing at all. Who ever hears about it? No one talks about it. This is a very good performance of it. Maybe the best performance of it. It's excellent. It's well sung. It's beautifully paced. And it's exciting because, frankly, Abbado was young and he was doing this unusual repertoire. And good for him. So, you may not like the piece. It may be a snooze. That's a personal thing. But it's wonderful that he did it. So, good for him. Disc 3. Bruckner, Symphony No. 1. Symphony No. 1 was an Abbado piece. He just had it. He felt something for this music. He recorded it 3 times. They're all very good. He did both the Linz version and the Vienna version. They're all very good. This was the first. In some ways, it's the most exciting. It's just fresh, and I don't know. It's interesting to see how this turned him on. And it's a beautiful performance. Then we have, and this is with all different orchestras, by the way. You've got the New Philharmonia and the London Symphony and the Wiener Philharmoniker. So there they are. And then we've got Mendelssohn, Symphonies 3 and 4. Now, Abbado remade these. These are with the LSO. Remade these things with the LSO. I think these are with the LSO. Let me just double check. I say that but I check everything. Yeah, the LSO, of course, because I get it wrong, and then you tell me I got it wrong, and then I feel embarrassed and so ashamed because I should know better. I remember the music. I remember the performances. I don't remember anything else. So I have to be careful when I rely on my memory. So he was an excellent Mendelssohn conductor. His Mendelssohn Symphony cycle with the LSO is very, very good. His Symphonies 3 and 4 are very, very good. But these earlier ones, first of all, I think they're sonically better. I really do. And the performances are exciting and bracing and disciplined and beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. So those are great. Then we've got disc number 5, Prokofiev, Symphonies 1, 3, and the Suite from Shu. Now, Abbado did some really, really fine Prokofiev, and these are excellent. There's nothing more to say. They're terrific. Absolutely terrific. You used another composer along with Muti, who you wish had done more Prokofiev. The thing about Abbado is he did symphonies 1 and 3, but you wish he'd done 5 or maybe 6 when he was young. That would have been fun. But yeah, it's a very good Prokofiev disc. Now, there were some really dynamite performances, the third that came later, like it was Shai did one and Muti did one, and they're more glamorous and maybe a little more scarifying, but this is pretty horripilating too. And it's fascinating again to see a young conductor doing unusual repertoire really well. This is how you make a career. This is the stuff on which his reputation was built. And then we have, let's see, number 6, Hindemith, the Symphonic Metamorphosis. Good performance, not the most exciting out there. There were, there was Zell, there was Ormandy, there were other people who did it really, really, really well. But he remade it in Berlin, and it wasn't nearly as good. And then there's Janáček's Sinfonietta, which he also remade in Berlin, which wasn't nearly as good. And then he did Prokofiev, Romeo and Juliet suites, his own suite from the ballet. And that's also, he remade all this stuff, let's put it that way. And these are all better performances. Are they the best? Well, I don't think his Janáček ever had the necessary edge, even though it's a good, solid performance. It's a literal performance. It's not a particularly imaginative or gritty or exciting performance, but it's good. It's good. And the Hindemith is similarly, it's good, but I've heard more compelling. And the Romeo and Juliet suites, well, there's a million of those, so it doesn't matter so much anymore. And finally, Verdi, great opera scenes. And these are with, James King and Nikolai Ghiarov and the Ambrosian Chorus, and they're wonderful. I mean, Abbado was a very, very fine Verdi conductor. It's delightful to hear, and that's the 7 discs on Decca in the Abbado Decca box. It's absolutely worth having, except for the Beethoven. That's the only thing that really goes wrong in the Beethoven 7th, even. The 8th is perfectly fine. So the rest of this stuff is really, for the most part, very, very, very good, and a wonderful example of what got people all excited about him when he was young, and how he sort of devolved over the ensuing years. It goes to show how, you're not always better if you record more. You're really not. You got to be able to pick your battles, or trim your sails, or whatever word or phrase you want to use. You got to know when to stop. Abbado had no idea when to stop. None of these people do, because as soon as they start to have the big careers, they become essential. They become name artists, and they develop this bubble, this insular bubble of hangers-on and followers, and they start to believe their own PR, and they just keep going and keep going and going, because so many people depend on them for a living. I mean, somebody wrote to me about Abbado saying, well, you have to keep in mind his last recordings were made when he was very, very ill. I don't care. I mean, I'm sorry that he was sick, but you can't ask me to spend money on your terrible recording because you were sick. Either you give 100% and you have 100% to give, or you stop. You give it up. That's what you have to do. You look at artists who know when to quit. There's so few. That's a talk. Maybe I'll do that. But it's not going to mention names. Maybe I'll save a little time, and we'll talk about some artists who knew when to quit. That's an interesting concept, isn't it? But in the meantime, this was well before Abbado even had to think about that. It's very, very fine. And so if you're looking for a nice little 7-disc Abbado box that has almost no weak links, the Decca box is a good choice. So keep on listening, friends. Thank you for joining me. Take care.